But tonight I am honored to be joined by a young man from South Carolina by the name of Bakari Sellers. He's going to be joining us in a very few minutes, a few moments, to discuss something that I've talked about ad nauseum on this show. I have discussed at length the black vote and my amazement that the black vote is going for Hillary Clinton. And so Bakari is a supporter of Hillary Clinton, and I'm going to let him speak for himself. But I have to give him credit. I have to give credit where credit is due, because I have solicited many supporters of Hillary Clinton, and he is the very first one who has been bold enough to come on the show and actually debate about it, high or low, from the top down to Twitter accounts that hide behind cat faces, all these people who love Hillary Clinton. Not a lot of people are willing to actually get online and on air and debate about it or have a discussion about it. And that's what we want to have, is a robust conversation about it. So he's going to be joining us momentarily. I want to put this out first before I even bring him on, because he's actually in the room, and I'm going to bring him on in about a minute. First things first, I respect someone who is bold enough to say, show me the place and the time. Tell me when and tell me where. So he said, tell me when, tell me where. Brother got my respect off the top, because I just like hubris. That's just, I mean, I don't know. I just like it. So he's got my respect. Number two, he's got my respect because he's doing a lot of great things in his own corner of the world, right? He's doing his thing. He's an analyst for CNN. He's an attorney. He's doing great things. So I put that out there first because I want to talk to my audience. I want you guys to do me a favor. If you respect Benjamin Dixon, which if you're watching, you probably should, then I need you to, in your comments and in the discussion, then I need you to respect Bakari, because I respect Bakari, right? He is supporting Hillary Clinton, which I completely disagree with, and we're going to talk about that very robustly. I promise you, we're going to dig into it. But I want you to show him the same respect that you would expect me to show you. And I say that because I know we have some very fervent Bernie Sanders supporters, and I respect you guys. So let's just show some mutual respect. Now, that being said, I'm no more disclaimers, no more precursors, because I know he's got to go and he doesn't have much time that he can share with us. But we're going to have a conversation. I want to bring Bakari. Bakari, first of all, thanks so much for being here. Just say hello to my audience, man. Thanks for being here.
No, thank you so much for having me. This is a discussion that we have to have. If there's anybody that's in African-American media or any media that want to have a dialogue about how we move this country forward, about this race, about anything, we are probably closer together than we realize. Mm-hmm. We're not really far apart. And if we're going to change anything in this world, it's incumbent upon our voices. And listen, I always tell people I like to speak for the voiceless and give a voice to those people. So kudos to you for doing that, bro.
So, and I almost jumped right into the conversation. I almost asked you, if you're a voice for the voiceless, how can you, I guess we're going in, how can you support Hillary Clinton if you're talking about being a voice for the voiceless? Because in my opinion, it's my opinion.
That's all we got. That's all we got. All we got is opinion.
Exactly. Hillary doesn't represent the average American anymore. Like, the Democratic Party barely represents the African American, the average experience in America. So you're a voice for the voiceless. Tell us why supporting Hillary Clinton is an extension of that.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, let's just go back, because I don't want this to be like we talked offline. This isn't about, who met Dr. King first or any specifics about the civil rights movement, because I just think that those are tactics to get us off topic. I supported Barack Obama in 2008. I was the co-chair for the Barack Obama Steering Committee here in South Carolina when we didn't have any support. When it was just a few of us, and we were going up against all the African-American leaders. And, and we made history after Iowa. We were able to come to South Carolina and make history. And so in my thought process, this go around, we know that South Carolina plays a very important role. I was able to have some conversations with Hillary Clinton. I was able to look at her relationship with the president. A lot of people like to go back to 2008 while I was on the ground. I remember how bad it was. I was a part of what's known as the Truth Squad, where we would travel around, and our job was to correct the distortions of Bill Clinton. Yeah. And so, when we had these conversations and I saw the relationship between she and Barack Obama, and I saw how that was not whatever the bygones were forgiven and moved forward, I was able to get over the initial roadblock, because I was a part of that person that felt that heartache and remembered all the stories on both sides. So
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No. So I did have that heartache. I mean, I think a lot of people did have that heartache, but who am I to carry a burden around that Barack Obama don't even carry around anymore? So that was first and foremost.
Okay.
And then that allowed me to go in and look at her qualifications. And, regardless of, whether or not man or woman, she's one of the most qualified people that's ever run for the office. I don't think anybody can hold that against her. And when you delve into her record, when you talk about the things she did as First Lady, and I know you're going to bring up some points, and then I'll bring up some points. When you talk about the things she did as United States Senator, I don't think there's anybody more qualified to be the president of the United States. And I brought Hillary Clinton to Denmark, South Carolina. Right. It's on the Quarter of Shame. I don't know if you or your viewers know what the Quarter of Shame is, but it's in South Carolina where the heating and air don't work, where the infrastructure is falling apart. It was my former district. It's 1 mile away from my house. Is where I went to school, and showed her the school, showed her the things that needed to be changed. And I said, Barack Obama through the stimulus program and Build America bonds, he started something here that a lot of people don't pay attention to. He has a legacy that we need to strengthen and protect. And I felt as if Hillary Clinton was in the best position to strengthen and protect that legacy. And in many ways, even to go a step further, in many of the comments that Senator Sanders made, it felt as if he was it wasn't about strengthening and protecting. It was about beating back that legacy. And that was very frustrating to many of us, and myself included.
Okay, so let's start there, because I think there's a misconception between of protecting and preserving President Obama's legacy and going forward and moving and doing more. So let's just go back to the underlying premise of this whole conversation is that, you support Hillary Clinton because you feel like she's going to protect President Obama's legacy.
But it's about, it's about being qualified and building and protecting on the legacy, correct?
Yeah, and even the qualified, I think it's one and the same, right? She's qualified for the role of the presidency as it exists right now. Would you understand that there are a lot of Americans, particularly African Americans, who are dissatisfied with the role of the presidency and the role that it plays in the military industrial complex, the role that it plays in neoliberal economic policies, the role that it plays in the just the framework that we live in right now? We want somebody to go in and change that paradigm.
I agree with you, but would you also agree that Barack Obama is the most transformational president of our generation?
Oh, we're young, man. We're
okay. Well, can you name a more transformational president?
I can. Ronald Reagan, unfortunately so. Ronald Reagan,
progressively transformational since FDR.
No, Lyndon Johnson. You can't throw Lyndon Johnson under the bus.
I'm not throwing Lyndon Johnson under the bus, but Lyndon Johnson, he didn't build that. There were a lot of things that were built when he took office, and we know that.
Yeah, no,
absolutely. Fair.
He picked up right where Kennedy left off, and he picked up on the work that King and the rest of the
correct
built, right? But in terms of being a transformational progressive president, you got to throw Lyndon Baines Johnson in there.
I agree.
In terms of in our generation, and this speaks to the bigger point, is that Ronald Reagan was a revolutionary conservative president who changed the paradigm, not incrementally. He changed it on 1981 Ross Kemp tax cuts. He came in and just wiped the floor with the tax base and gave tax breaks and brought in trickle down economics. I'm not telling you anything you don't know.
Yeah, and I also push back and say that by comparison, Ronald Reagan is not nearly as conservative as people try to label him to be. Yeah. You can't even put Ronald Reagan wouldn't win the primary today or 4 years ago.
No, he wouldn't, but he was still a revolutionary.
I give you that. I won't disagree with you.
The reason I bring up Ronald Reagan, and I'm glad you led me right to it, right, is the fact that he came in without doing things incrementally. And we have been incrementally making little shifts to the left and to the right. If it was a shift, go ahead.
Let's push back. Hold on 1 second. So are you telling me that the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, is incremental change?
ACA is incremental change in the sense that it is. Now, you know what? Hang on. Let me table the incremental change portion of that. I would say the ACA is an extension of it's Romney Care, right? We are. Let's be.
I don't disagree with that. It's Nixon Care if you want to go back and see what it is.
Right?
That's fine. But it's
progressive. It is not like this. It's not single payer. It's not
single payer.
It's not an uber progressive policy that we can champion.
Who was the last person to champion? Who was the last person to champion single payer in the United States Congress? Who was the last person that sat down at a table and championed single payer in the early 90s? Who was that person?
I have a feeling you're going to have to tell me. Who was it?
That was Hillary Clinton. Who else went to task for single payer?
Wait a minute. Who was standing right behind her in the 90s?
Oh, I'm not. Trust me. I'm not going to misspeak like that. She misspoke and whatever. I'm not going to do that. However, there's no doubt about the fact that Hillary Clinton was leading that charge. In fact, the Republicans eviscerated her.
Exactly. So why then, Bakari, would she shift now and she would argue against the very thing that she championed in the 90s?
No. It's not a shift, though. That's the point, though. That's not a fundamental shift at all. In fact, what it's saying is we're going to build on we have 90% of Americans covered today.
Mm-hmm.
We have 90% of Americans covered today. And the problem is, that's funny that I just got a phone call from DC. That's a weird call. I'm not answering a phone call from the White House because I'm on the phone because I'm over here with you.
I need you to hold up for 8 more
minutes. I don't know what that is. That was just weird, though. I'm not answering it because I'm on with you. But no, it's about building on what we have and understanding the reality of the Congress that we live in. We can go and blow bubbles in the wind all day and say we want single payer, but it's a lot easier right now with these exchanges and what we have. I mean, I can't even get Medicaid expanded in South Carolina. There are 230,000 people in South Carolina who simply won't expand Medicaid, and that is $16 billion coming back to our state. So I'm trying to figure out how you want me to jump from this belief that I have a governor, we have governors, not just here in South Carolina, but throughout this country, who won't even expand Medicaid with free money, but we're going to vote and pass single payer.
But do you know why they are empowered to do so? They are empowered to do so because they have a force behind them. They have a movement behind them. They have their principles, if you want to call them, that they are principles behind them that have been championed and heralded since 1980. Like, we are still living. Would you agree with this statement? We are still living underneath the economic paradigm that Ronald Reagan set in 1981.
I am, especially because of the simple fact that I live in South Carolina. So, yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
No. I was just saying, yeah, I was listening. I was agreeing with your sentiment.
If you agree with that, then these incremental changes are not progressive incremental changes. These incremental changes are just little ticks to the left or little ticks to the right.
I can't.
Who's the president?
I mean, the Affordable Care Act is not a little tick by any stretch. The Affordable Care Act passing and then getting approved by the United States Supreme Court. I just can't let you say that that's a little tick. I mean, maybe we have a different frame that we're working in.
But do you understand that we're fighting it, and feel free to disagree with me, but we're fighting on the Republican turf. And I think that's what Bernie Sanders is trying to say. That's what the progressive movement is trying to say. We're fighting on the progressive turf. Yes, Barack Obama has been a very successful president if you use standard conservative measurements, the stock market, how good is the unemployment rate, the U3, not the real we use these standard that the Republicans, he's been a great president, but not by progressive standards. And I love President Obama. I defend President Obama against some people that will run my blood pressure up, right? So I'm not saying this as an insult to President Obama.
No, I get you. I mean, you're pushing. I get that. And we're pushing. I mean, but let's not bore in Barack Obama and Ronald Reagan. We got a little off topic.
We want to talk about Hillary.
We're already 10 minutes in. We want to talk about it.
Okay, let's get to Hillary. Hillary, I don't understand. One thing that I don't understand is that if you are a voice for the voiceless, let's go back to the top. Hillary Clinton, I feel, is a Wall Street Democrat. I'm borrowing those words from Cornel West. She's a Wall Street Democrat. She is not going to change the economic paradigm for any American. It's going to be the same. I feel economically America is going to be. So
you do. I mean, when she came out with her Wall Street plan that was endorsed by a progressive champion, that literally said in the Washington Post, and I wish I had it in front of me, but I don't. Elizabeth Warren, who came out and said that she had to. Okay, is Elizabeth Warren not good now? You just threw your hands up. I don't know who's good anymore.
Hold on.
Are you mad? Are you one of those people who's mad with Elizabeth Warren?
Hold that thought. I lost my headphones.
I know.
You said Elizabeth Warren. I got 7 minutes. Go ahead.
No, what was wrong with Elizabeth Warren?
I love Elizabeth Warren, but she's not my progressive sweetheart anymore. But go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just saying that the progressive champion who has bona fides that we really can't challenge when we're talking about progressivism. I mean, you may dislike her for not jumping out and supporting Bernie Sanders. That's fine. However, you can't challenge her progressive bona fides. But she's the one who said that Hillary Clinton had a stronger or had an extremely strong plan to contain and rein in Wall Street. But what I will tell you that is the reason we're having this discussion about Wall Street is because of people like you. I mean, the reason that we're having this discussion about income inequality is because of that movement. But what's wrong with someone adapting that message or bringing it to the forefront? If you have a platform and you have 10 issues, but number 8 or 9 is an issue that you see is resonating, that you see as the issue, of course you want to sharpen that message and bring it to the forefront. I don't think there's any shame in that.
The underlying issue that we have a problem with is the inseparable relationship that the White House, that the presidency has with the neoliberal economic paradigm.
So, I mean,
we got to talk about this point.
Yeah.
That the current paradigm completely has eviscerated Black wealth, man. It is gutted Black wealth in so many ways. There's African Americans that are still in poverty.
Yeah, I mean,
so if we are. Do you feel, let's ask a solid question. Do you feel that Hillary Clinton is going to change anything about the current economic paradigm that is currently detrimental to African Americans?
Well, I think that's a loaded question, but I think let's look at it in 2 facets, because the first thing you talked about was Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to African American wealth and the income gaps that are there in African American communities. So let's tackle the first one first and then the second one. When you talk about a Wall Street Democrat, you also, and I'm gonna have to use a parallel here. You also have to understand that Barack Obama got the most contributions of anybody running for president in the history of this United States from Wall Street.
There you go.
But yet he enacted some of the toughest regulations on Wall Street. I mean, that is a fact. I mean, that is a bona fide fact.
Toughest regulations as compared to what?
I mean, but when have we had somebody rein in Wall Street, understanding the mess that we just got from deregulation? Someone who had to come. Are we going with this ideal system here versus where we are? I mean, is that the?
But like the entire idea that it's an ideal utopian. It's not an ideal utopian. It is a fundamental fact that Wall Street is still engaging in some of
the same. I sue them. I sue those banks and things for discriminatory practices often. I mean, whether or not it's Countrywide, who I was a part of suing. You talk about my work on a daily basis. I mean, Countrywide mortgages. You went in and saw the discrimination that was going on. That where you would have the same profile, different races get different interest rates. I mean, those type of things, those systemic changes.
But not just that, but also just Dodd-Frank in general is by far not the toughest regulations.
But are you comparing it to what we had, or are you comparing it to what you want?
I'm comparing it to both, like what was former and what we need, more so than what was former. If we put it aside, what we need, there still needs to be stronger regulations.
There's no doubts about it. I mean, I can't sit here and say that it's not without. I can't sit here and say that it's not without gaps, things we need to fill in. I mean, we still need to rein in the predatory lending industry. We still need to make sure that we have fairness in lending and housing. I mean, I get all of those things, but by comparison to what we had, I mean, that you can't say that is not a step in the right direction. And I use that because you threw out this Cornel West phrase of corporate Wall Street Democrat. And I had to point to you the simple fact that the same person who implemented this type of regulation on Wall Street is the same person who took donations from Wall Street. So I don't think that's a fair barometer by which we measure.
No, actually, I think it is a very fair barometer because it is not sufficient. It is not enough. There needs to be more.
I don't disagree with you.
Only went as far as Obama was willing to go. Listen.
No. That's different. Willing to go? Willing to go, really? Now you have to backtrack on that. It's not as far as he was willing to go.
You know what? I don't have any give me an indication. Give me an indication that he wanted to go further, and I will gladly backtrack in these next.
I can give you an indication of. When you look at, and we can go back to the history of the bill, and in fact, we knew, like for ACA, we had single payer. He was pushing for single payer. It was not something that was going to happen. He backed off that. And Dodd-Frank, I would have to go back and pull the history of the bill, but I just know from the language in which he used and the language in which was in Dodd-Frank and the different reverberations of the bill. And I know how it ended up with the Congress that it passed through. Saying it's willing is different.
Listen, I will give you the same defense of Obama, and then I know you got to go at 9:20, but I got to get you for at least 2 more minutes.
No, you good. No, we're good. We're good.
same defense of Obama that I would give anyone else. I think President Obama did as much as he could in the capacity and the role that the White House and the presidency plays in our current system. What I'm saying is that we're tired of the current structure and the current system and the role of the presidency as it has been since 1981. And what we're saying is we want somebody who is going to be transformational progressively as Ronald Reagan was transformational conservatively.
That's fair enough. But I mean, you also have to understand that we're at a point now where either we get in on the inside and attempt to change the barometers in which we live by, or the framework in which we live by, or you're going to stand on the outside and continue to throw rocks at the train. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we understand that this movement is one, and this progressive movement is one which dominates the dialogue on the left right now. Mm-hmm. They barely talking about trade on the right. I mean, Donald Trump is talking about trade, but he's talking about it very flippantly. And I don't think he knows a good trade deal from a bad trade deal. I really don't believe that. And so we are having this discussion now. But if we're going to continue to push these ideals, it has to be more than lofty rhetoric, I don't want to say lofty, but empty rhetoric mixed with, insults and everything else.
You went from lofty to empty. It's not lofty rhetoric. It's not empty rhetoric. These are things
No. I'm not saying that you or anybody else in the progressive movement is just lobbing lofty rhetoric or empty rhetoric. What I am saying is it has to be more. Like what we have to do now is we have to become the system that you have so much disdain for, mm-hmm. the government that you want to change, the party that you want to challenge, the presidency that you want to help manipulate. And manipulate may not be the best word, but help expand and grow. You have to be able to get on the inside of that framework and break it down. Okay. And bust it down.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. I will concede that point. Not even concede. We live that point, right? That's one of the main things we do with the Progressive Army is getting inside of the system and changing it from the inside. But let me ask you this, in terms of the shift in Democratic politics, I feel personally that Hillary Clinton is the quintessential representation of that rightward shift in Democratic politics that has moved us away from progressivism more towards a moderate right position, that she is a corporate Democrat.
I think that Hillary Clinton, I mean, you can't deny the fact that Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, they coined the phrase, they started the phrase blue dog Democrats. I mean, that was them. That's who they were. That's how they got elected in 1992. I mean, that is what it is, because they were also Southern Democrats. And you also see what happened when we don't have blue dog Democrats anymore. Remember Heath Shuler? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We don't have Heath Shulers anymore. We don't have these people anymore because they're no longer the voices in our party. And our party has become way more liberal and way more progressive. But our party also hasn't been able to win in the South. I mean, that is a fact. Yep. And so what we have to begin to do is we have to begin to instill these ideals at a very fundamental and grassroots level. And we have to begin to start door to door. We have to begin to start at the school boards, at the state houses. Because when I was in the state house for a decade, looking around trying to find a lot of help, it just went a lot of help there. Yep. And we're talking about changing the White House, but we have to change everyone's house on Main Street right now.
Okay, so then let's start. You tell me when you got to go, but let's start at the very beginning.
We'll do this again in 2 weeks. So we'll do it again in 2 weeks.
Okay, we'll do it again in 2 weeks. So let's start at the fundamentals. So I love that you conceded the fact that Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton coined the phrase blue dog.
I don't know if they coined it, but they were quintessential blue dogs.
Yeah, they're the representation thereof, right? So at least you would admit that, so that they are further right leaning. But from what I'm hearing from you, that you are supporting Hillary Clinton because you feel like she is the best representation of the next step. Do you feel like
that's fair? I mean, that's fair. And I think that also not just the next step, because I feel like we are coming off, even with Mitch McConnell saying that, we're going to break you, you're going to fail. Even with Merrick Garland, who I ain't excited about, but I'm going to support because I understand, I get it. I understand the framework. I understand that he's definitely not Sotomayor. He may be more in the category of Kagan than anything else. He ain't far right. He just has some criminal justice issues that I have some severe heartburn with. I mean, that's just a fact. So, I understand that we have these issues, but yes, even within the constraints of where we are, we haven't even had the discussion about foreign policy, which you know, we can, it's a war and peace conversation, and it's a whole nother conversation. But within the constraints of where we are, building on the Affordable Care Act, you know, making sure that we are going back in and rebuilding these schools that are falling apart, making sure that we are building on that legacy, not just that, strengthening the Department of Justice so they can go in and do what they need to do, building on the Ferguson Commission, 21st century criminal justice reform, all of these things, the litany of things that either we pushed her, she's adopted, these things that are a part of the framework of who she is. I mean, this makes Hillary Clinton the best person for this job, I do believe.
Anything that you've listed, do you honestly believe Bernie Sanders is not equal or better on everything that
I mean, there's a long litany of things. I mean, I was there, and I remember, as you do too, when Bernie Sanders, before he had a criminal justice platform, was talking about, you know, the only thing that he was saying was that I marched with Dr. King. I mean, we both recall that. We both recall that before it was about a plan, and I don't take credit for that. You don't take credit for that. I mean, Black Lives Matter, Occupy Wall Street. A lot of these young activists have gone out there and pushed and have continued to push these candidates.
Hillary had a plan on the books also, though. It wasn't.
Correct. No. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying, and that's why we're talking about where they are. I mean, you asked me the question, and you said better than or further than beyond and further than. I can't let you get away or say that somehow Bernie Sanders was light years ahead on criminal justice reform. Well, no, they both had to be pushed, even to get where they are today. There's no doubt about it. But I do believe, I fundamentally believe, from talking not just to her and some of your viewers, it was a moment that rubbed me the wrong way, because I was actually in the audience with the mothers of the movement, with Sabrina Fulton and some of these other moms who lost, and they were like, well, who made them mothers of the movement, and why are they support? And, you know, just throwing people completely under the bus. But I mean, whether or not you're talking about these things and criminal justice reform and building on the Ferguson Commission, I mean, these are things that she's talking about. These are things that she's willing to do and get done. Expand DOJ. Actually instead of saying DOJ is going to investigate 1,200 cop shootings, which is not the correct way to go about doing it, because they're not going to do it first. They don't have the capacity to do so. It's about making sure that on the state and local level, you have independent investigators who are not bound to or work with these solicitors and prosecutors every day, so that we can get an independent outlook on when you have a fatality at the hands of law enforcement. I mean, those little type things that we're talking about getting done.
But then also, and then tell me if
that was my minutia. I apologize.
No. That's good. That's good. Tell me if you don't have time to talk about this, because there is a serious economic component to the issues in the Black community that Hillary Clinton is not going to address. Hillary Clinton doesn't have.
Like name one.
The 28% of African Americans are in poverty, below the poverty line. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something, because, you know, I get this question all the time, and I'll leave you with this. Somebody asked me on Twitter the other day, and I probably need to go back and answer it, because it just kind of got me off guard. It was like, really? Somebody said, what has Hillary Clinton done for Black people? Yeah, I was going to.
What has she done for African Americans? And I thought to myself, because I come from a very poor community. Right. I was blessed to have both parents in the home. Both parents were teachers and professors at the colleges. But, you know, I grew up where 98% of the kids were on free and reduced lunch.
Yep.
So, I mean, we're not having a conversation that we're not familiar with. And you talk about lifting these people out of poverty. In 1992, 93, there's a program called CHIPS, right? It's the Children's Health Insurance Program.
Yep.
And the Children's Health Insurance Program is how many kids, especially many kids of color, got care in this country. And so you can go back and you can fiddle your thumbs and say, what did she do? Point to me something concrete. I'll give you that. And so all your listeners can go back, and all your viewers can go back, and they can Google CHIPS, and they can Google Hillary Clinton and see that she put that on her back. And then a step further, when she was a United States Senator, you know what she did? She said that Hispanic kids and kids who were the children of immigrants could also be on CHIPS, and expanded the CHIPS program. So you're talking about these kids in poverty. How does she lift those up? She's not going to do it. I tell you that she's already done it once, and that's a very tangible, perfect example of doing it. And
but what one hand gives, Bakari, the other hand takes away, because
let's back up.
We immediately after that, we gutted welfare. We gutted the safety nets and left so many more children in poverty. Like,
if I were to tell you if I were to sit here and tell you that we ain't got work to do, and I'm sorry, because I have to put a 10-year-old to bed who who is standing around the corner here. But if I were to sit here and tell you that we still don't have a lot of work to do, I'll be lying to you. But see, the unique part about this discussion and the discussion we'll have in 2 weeks and the discussion we'll have 2 weeks after that, or whenever we'll do it, is because we have to get above all of these insults that both sides are yelling at each other. And we have to begin to have these articulate, substantive discussions about how to move forward. Because at the end of the day, we can talk about Hillary Clinton. We can talk about Bernie Sanders. But me and Nina Turner are building a plan to go back in Flint, because we don't want Flint to be forgotten about. And so these are some of the conversations that we're having. We're talking about making sure that African Americans especially don't get left behind. I'm sitting out here pushing for Ketanji Brown Jackson to be on the United States Supreme Court. I felt like it wasn't going to happen. I knew it wasn't going to happen, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to continue to lift her name up. I mean, these are things that you and I, and by nature, where are you from, Ben?
I'm from everywhere, brother. I done moved.
Where do you live now, Ben?
I live in Boston now.
Oh, Boston. See,
that's why I got this love-hate thing with Elizabeth.
You got a white picket fence out front and all that stuff in Boston.
Nah, brother. Listen, I'm a product of, you can make a certain amount and still be living with some poor white people. So that's the reality. But go ahead.
I'm just saying, man, that it's incumbent upon us when all of this stuff passes that we still have this open dialogue and are able to have this dialogue and maybe work together on some stuff in the future to kind of at least lift our people out of poverty.
Listen, we did not get through. We didn't even talk about Hillary for about 5 minutes. Bakari, I appreciate the conversation. It was a good conversation. I fundamentally disagree with you. I honestly believe that Hillary Clinton is not going to be better for African Americans because of economic policies more than anything else. But you've made your point, and listen, I love what you said more than anything else is that there's work to do. I heard some things you said tonight that I haven't heard you say on CNN. So, and I'm sure you've said it other places, but
well, I mean, and not only that, but I mean, people talk about it. I remember the Cornel West interview, and I loved it. I don't have a lot of, there's not a whole lot of infatuation I have for Dr. West, and we can talk about that at another point. I'm a child of the civil rights movement, and I like to say that I embrace it. There's nothing like, being able to pick up the phone and it being like Aunt Kathleen. I refer to Julian Bond as Uncle Julian. I did an interview, it's called Explorations in Black Leadership, that's at UVA with Julian Bond. And I once said that I want to be remembered as being more like Julian Bond than Barack Obama. I mean, that is how I feel about my role and my commitment to civil justice and social justice. And so the only reason I share that with you is to say that the people are like, oh man, why didn't you, at the end of this conversation, Cornel was talking and the producer was in your ear and he said some stuff about your father and went on this dialogue. And I said, the most amazing part is my father is my best friend and my hero, and my father supports Hillary Clinton and as well. And he's the president of Historically Black College and University. Mm-hmm. And there are many heroes and sheroes that do. And that's not where I form my opinions. I make my own. But we do have conversations, and we do want to make sure that you're never afraid of the conversation. Right. Ever. And you shouldn't be either, and I'm glad you're not. And I never will be either. So if you set the time and place, I'll be there.
Hey, listen, I'm going to say 2 weeks from tonight. 2 weeks from tonight.
All right, we'll plan it, and we'll be in the DMs, and we'll make it work.
All right, man. You put that 10-year-old to bed, and I'm going to make sure my 3-year-old does. Listen, there's so much more we could talk about, but I want to thank you for coming on. Much respect for you for having the chutzpah to not give a damn and say to name the place and time, and I respect that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to give some respect and some love for Bakari Sellers. I disagree with them on Hillary Clinton.
We're gonna disagree a lot, but that's cool, man.
It doesn't matter. We probably agree on 90% of every other thing.
All right, thanks, bro. Have a good night.
Hey, man, you have a good night.
All right, bye-bye.
857-600-0518. Caller, you are live on the air. What's your name?